happy rainy day to you here. This is Toby, and I'm from Venture Out Nursery on Whidbey Island, and today we're going to talk about planting a bare root fruit tree. We're here at my home orchard, humble as it is. I've gotten my hole dug. So I excavated to just about the depth that I know the root ball was deep, and I've made a little mound inside of my hole and firmed it nicely so that it will not settle too much when I put the tree in. Here's my fruit tree. It's an Italian plum, and I've been soaking it for a couple of hours in another bigger bucket, and then while I dug the hole I brought it closer and I've got it soaked. So it's very important to rehydrate your bare root fruit trees before you plant them. So the first step after you've got your hole dug and you've soaked your plant is to inspect your root structure for broken roots. So I have a broken root here, no big deal. I'll give it a nice clean cut. And wherever you cut the root, new roots will emerge. So you don't have to worry about cutting your roots. I mean, you don't want to go crazy pruning, but if you've got some breaks, it's okay. So the rest of my root system looks pretty good. Then I'm going to look at the top for any breakage, and it looks pretty good. So I don't need to make any cuts to the top, but if you had broken branches, you would definitely want to prune them at a node. So now I'm going to set my fruit tree in the hole on the mound. And I'm looking for a couple of things here. I'm looking to spread out my roots, and I'm looking to be careful that I don't plant my tree too deeply. Being planted too deeply is the leading cause of tree death. So if you do nothing else, be careful with planting your trees at the proper height. So I am looking for where the major roots are coming out of the plant. So it would be here. So this is where I want my height to be. These little roots, which are higher on the trunk, are roots that are they perform the function of gasping for air when the tree has been planted too deeply. And so the way these are cultivated in the nursery, that can sometimes happen. So we don't need to worry about these tiny little roots coming up. We want to plant at this depth. So I'm going to set my tree on its mound, and I'm going to be very careful to spread. This root ball is pretty wide out there, but sometimes you'll get some that are very much like a little dangling octopus, and you want to really work to spread those roots out. This one's pretty splayed already, so I don't have a lot of work to do on this step, but I definitely want to make sure that I'm arranging these evenly. If any of your roots were growing around like that, you would definitely want to pull them apart and spread them out. So now that I've gotten it in the hole, this actually looks like it might be a little too deep still, but I'm going to put this soil, this was soil that I excavated from the bottom of the hole, and I'm going to put that back in here. And I'll adjust the depth in just a couple of moments. So I've got that soil in, get rid of weeds. And then I'm going to put a little more of the subsoil back in, so the rustier bit. And now I'm going to gently lift and pack. And then I'll get some more soil in here. Now, having gotten the existing soil down for the bottom half or 2/3 of my hole, now I'm going to mix in some amendments. So I've got worm grow here, which provides excellent fertility, as well as a bunch of soil community like microbiomes and that sort of thing are in worm grow. So earthworm castings are a wonderful soil amendment, high in nitrogen, high in other good guys. You could also, if you had really chunky, horrible clay, you could use the soil building conditioner that we sell. I find this also makes a great mulch. So for me, I'm going to be using the worm castings as my amendment and the soil building conditioner as my mulch. So as I backfill my hole, I'm going to be mixing this worm grow in. Very exciting watching someone toil. We we have a lot of clay soil on Whidbey Island, and we have a lot of sandy soil on Whidbey Island. And clays, both of which benefit greatly from a lot of organic material in the planting mix. So just a little bit more of the worm castings, break up the clumps. So before I get it totally finished, while it's still a little bit low in its hole, and there's a good lip to hold the water, I'm going to water my tree in real well before I finish. This helps settle the pockets of air in the soil and helps you make sure that you've got enough soil in your hole and that it's all tucked in and intermingled around all the roots properly. And sometimes I find it's nice to just kind of go around. There weren't any roots on the margin of the potting or on the planting circle, so I know I'm not damaging my roots if I spade around out here. Give it a little shake to make sure it's all settled. And you can see the soil level dropped quite a bit when I put the water in. So that's when we would finish it with a little more worm grow and a little more field soil. And I am going to put fertilizer in this, but I'm going to do it at the end. So now, one thing I'm being quite careful of is I don't want to have soil up around this trunk. Soil around the trunk of a tree is also a real problem. It provides an opportunity for diseases to penetrate your tree bark, and that's never good. So we've got that mostly backfilled, and now I'm going to take, we've got a very muddy bag, all-purpose fertilizer 444. So typically Whidbey soils have plenty of phosphorus, so you don't need to go crazy with the high middle number fertilizers because that middle number is phosphorus. You can never go wrong with a balanced fertilizer. It gives the plant a little gentle bit of everything. Now this is an organic granular fertilizer, so it's safer to use on a bare root tree than a salts-based fertilizer that's something synthetic. So I recommend organic always, but especially with my fertilizers. So I'm going to give just a gentle little handful. I'm going to sprinkle it all around. I'm going to tickle that in. And then after the camera stops rolling, I'll go get another bucket of water and water that in, because it's very important to water in your fertilizers too. But at this point, we can now check the tree for straightness. Because that soil is so mushy, we can still make the adjustment. So we've got a stake here. You really only want to stake trees for a few months to help them get established and rooted in. But when a bare root tree is planted, she doesn't really have any legs to stand on of her own. So we need to provide those legs by way of stakes. So we're using arborist tree chain lock, and we'll just thread it through here. And then what I will do is I will put another couple of stakes. The idea is to allow the tree to be able to move. It's the movement in the wind that allows the trunk of a tree to really straighten and the wood to get woody. So I'll be putting another tree, we just do it in a little equal triangle, another stake, sorry, on each side so that it's supported from all sides. And in a couple of months, I'll check it and see if it feels like it's solid and it can stand on its own. If you don't think your tree needs it, it's always better to not stake, but you don't want it to fall over in the wind. So we've watered, we've amended, we've fertilized, we've staked. Last step is mulch. So I'm using the soil building conditioner as a mulch. You could also use wood chips or fir bark, or plain old compost works well too. But a nice generous mulch away from the trunk, very important. So the purpose of this mulch is to keep the soil temperatures moderated. It is to quiet the weed seeds, hold the water in, provide a little nutrient, but we do not want to bury our trunk. So there she is, my Italian plum, all planted, looking good. Feel free to visit the nursery if you have any questions. We're always happy to help, and I hope you grow a bare root fruit tree this season. Thank you for watching.